Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Courtney. Today, I am joined with both Jordan and Brad. We are here to talk about engaging in esports as a non-competitor. So, obviously, esports is kind of known for its supermassive stages of pro players playing for huge prizing, but there's actually a lot more that you can do to engage within esports that doesn't include actually competing up on the stage. And we are kind of here to talk about some of that in case you aren't totally interested on the competing side, but you still want to be a part of esports. So I will let Jordan introduce himself first.
Perfect. Thank you, Courtney. As Courtney said, my name is Jordan. I am the Human Resources Lead and also on the Board of Directors for the Alberta Esports Association. My experience in esports is that I played Smash, currently do still play Smash, since about 2013. And since then, I've kind of grown up in the scene, gone to compete nationally, both here and in the States. And now I've been working with AESA. I've kind of been developing kind of more back-end stuff and a lot more about inclusion especially. And so we'll hopefully get to talk about that a little bit later.
Wonderful. I'll introduce myself as well. My name is Courtney. She, they pronouns work. I am the Secretary Board of Director for AESA. My journey with esports is a little weird because I actually got kind of converted because of AESA from being a non-esports player to starting up my own Twitch channel, competing in Salt Flats this year for my first ever esports tournament, and kind of being able to support esports without being a competitor. So that is kind of a little bit of who I am. And Brad.
Hello, I'm Brad Jones, he, him pronouns, and I am one of the co-founders and acting vice president of the Alberta Esports Association. My story is familiar. I've been a competitor. I was a competitor for probably 12 to 14 years. I ended up retiring and moving on primarily to event services and working on esports on the back end, as you see now. But my start was actually a bit of an interesting one and something that I really want to get into the beginning of this panel with, which is that when I started in esports, I was, this was 2004. I must have been 14 or 15 at the time. And I actually was taken to a tournament in Red Deer by my father because my father and mother were both supportive of my interest in taking games competitively. So I traveled to a tournament that you probably heard Victor's talk about before, but if you haven't, was one of the first Smash Bros tournaments in Alberta. And it was held in a library in Red Deer. And what was really neat about it was my father was willing to drive all the way up to Red Deer, spend 6 to 7 hours just hanging around, doing things in Red Deer, small town, not a lot of activities for him to partake in on short notice, and support me in going to that tournament where I was able to, on a very short term, live out some of what my dreams were. Now, I didn't do spectacularly well, but I didn't do terrible either, and it encouraged me to continue going back into esports and meeting people, and I actually made friends with people in my own high school that were there. So it created a great opportunity for me, and it really brings us to our first topic in this panel, which is the support from parents, partners, and general family inclusion. I'd love to hear a little bit of what you have to say on the topic, Courtney, and we can bounce back and forth here.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually started with esports and getting to meet Victor way back in the day. This is probably 2014 or so, because I was the girlfriend that was brought along as a support system to the Smash at the U of A. And so I never competed. I was very bad. But I got in the little corner with the girlfriends. We hung out. We had a good time. Of course, I got brought in sometime to play some friendly matches. But pretty much like my job was just to support the boyfriend, hang out with the girlfriends. Like we still tried to make it a fun time, even though the majority of us didn't really care about the competing that was happening. And I honestly think that was such a fun, cool experience. Obviously, it led me to AESA and the work that I do here, which is phenomenal. But it also just kind of let me know that like the people that are competing, they're not just there to compete, especially when you're going to these weeklies, when you're going to something a little bit more casual, because those people are also there just to make friends, hang out, talk about the games that they love. And that's something that as a support system, you can really do. You can learn about the games. I remember learning how to play Peach competitively just so that I could be the support in that system. And I never was good at it. I remember one of my shining moments was taking one stock on Victor once, and that was the top thing that I ever did in esports. But yeah, I like that. I think having girlfriends, having parents, having siblings come, there's so much more for them to do than just sit around and wait for it to be done.
Well, and that's such a great point. I really think what's something that gets neglected and missed in a lot of esports when it's talked at the professional level is that addition of the support systems and the people behind the scenes, whether it's family, partners, anyone really. And the idea that esports is traditionally marketed and traditionally involved with a younger demographic. I mean, most people get involved in esports, at least at an interest point, well before they're 18, well before they're an adult, and getting involved themselves and through their own means. So a lot of the times, that parent being interested in letting you play games, letting you meet with these people, either online or in person, and being there, being present and involved in it, allowing you to play. I mean, my own mother is a gamer. She plays all sorts of games. Her favorite game is Eternal Darkness, which is an awesome game. But genuinely, like, the idea that they were always there to support me helped build this structure for me to feel comfortable in playing with other people, and they were present in the event that there was any danger or any insecurities that I might have had in meeting other people through these communities, especially because there's such a wide gamut of people that play esports. I mean, any age range, any demographic, you might run into it. So it's something that it's really nice to have that backup, that support system. And whether it is someone who travels to the tournament with you, like a parent might, or whether it's someone who is a partner who maybe isn't necessarily competitive but still likes the video game and just likes to support, it's very important for us, either as players or as people that are supporting, or even just as event organizers, to really consider the people involved behind the scenes and making sure that they're able to enjoy those experiences as well. And a lot of the time, that really comes down to connecting with each other and really building that camaraderie and that community around those pieces.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I've been fairly lucky that the work that I've done, either as a support system or someone just kind of adjacent to esports, it really led me into a lot of the things that are kind of outside of the competing realm. So for me, I started a Twitch channel. And that actually brought me into esports, and my first ever first-person shooter experience outside of like casually once in a while playing Call of Duty was the AIM-Labs tournament that happened. And I practiced for like a month, and it was my first time ever just like actually practicing a game. And it became really, really fun, and my community got really involved. And since then, I've become a huge Valorant player. And the big thing with my community hasn't been like for me to compete or anything like that, but it's just been to see myself get a little bit better every single time. And that has nothing to do with the competing, but it's super, super exciting, and it is esports adjacent. And that's something that I have found super exciting. I've also partnered with with Extra Life, and there are a bunch of other gaming charities. Gaming for Good is one that's really fantastic here in Alberta. All of these places kind of allow you to love video games and even compete sometimes without ever having to worry about being an esports competitor. One of the great things, so with Extra Life, there was an Edmonton player actually that won the Magic the Gathering Arena tourney just a couple weeks ago, and he ended up getting over $1,700 US donated to the stallery on his behalf, just because he decided to play a game. And it wasn't super competitive, but he still was able to do it for charity, and that's super cool. Jordan, I know you have a lot of experience, especially with kind of volunteering and stuff like that outside of competing.
Yeah, so this goes all the way back to when I first started in the Smash scene. Like, part of like what makes those kinds of like grassroots events run is just people stepping up and saying, I'm going to do this. And I was one of those people. I fully remember this very clearly. But the TO computer was unmanned, and so I just got behind there and I started inputting results. And people came to me and just said, I went 0-2, or I went 2-0, or 1-2. And I was like, yep, gotcha. And granted, now there would be a lot more rules in place, but back then, those kinds of people who stepped up and just said, I see a hole, I'm going to put myself in that place, I'm going to make sure that these events run smoothly, right? That's how things ran traditionally. And so now that we're here and we have kind of a structure to help us facilitate things a lot better. Volunteers are still super important, and they really are the lifeblood of like what makes us able to function, even now, even behind the scenes. And one story that I do want to tell is recently, AESA helped run a League of Legends event with the Edmonton Public School Board. And as part of that, we decided to get some volunteers from those high schools to get students involved within the process who weren't just strictly competing, right? And so, I was kind of hesitant. I was assuming, maybe it would be traditionally, a lot of males, and people who just wanted to kind of be esports essentially. And what happened was that over half of the volunteers were female, and some of them weren't even interested in necessarily gaming culture, but they knew about esports and they wanted to see it for themselves and they wanted to be involved in any capacity. And I remember this one conversation very clearly. It was one girl who said, I'm not a gamer, but I know this is important. I want to be involved. And I was like, that's incredible. That's great, because that to me shows that there's this shift happening in kind of, gaming culture and esports culture, right? Where it's not just so niche, and it's not just focused on, competitors and that kind of like upper echelon of people who, can do cool things or whatever. We're now seeing this kind of gradual move towards, more casual interest and people who, are aware of esports influence, right? And they know it's cool and they just want to be there, right? And that was so meaningful to me, and that gave me a lot of hope that going forward, it's not just going to be so strictly one kind of monolith of people who are involved in esports, right? It's going to be wider. It's going to be more involved. You're going to have a greater diversity of people, and it's going to be more inclusive. And that to me is really what's motivating me personally to give my best each and every time I get on here to do something for AESA, right? And so that's really my spiel about why volunteering for me and volunteering and volunteers in general are just so important, because it's a way for people to get involved in esports even if they're not competitors. Those volunteers are still valid and they're still incredibly important to our scene, right?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that's a good kind of transition into kind of figuring out what AESA's goals are. What are the visions of AESA? Kind of how do our plans for volunteers and our events, like how do our goals align with helping the people that don't want to compete but still want to be a part of it?
Right. So every time that I get to talk about AESA, one of the big things that I want to really get out there is that we're really building a holistic vision of what esports can be in Alberta. We have the platform to be able to make ourselves not just an event organization. It's great that when people envision esports, it is those kinds of big glitzy glam, huge cash prizes, right? But there's also so much that goes behind the scenes that goes to get people there. And even then, those big events are catering towards a certain demographic. It's only a certain percentage of even our people, right? We want to build events and a vision that includes all gamers, or even non-gamers, adjacent gamers, parents and families of gamers, partners of gamers, right? We want to make these spaces so that anyone can come and enjoy themselves, so they don't have to feel like they're pressured to be a certain kind of molded person, right? And so part of that includes, building, a collegiate esports circuit, so that we can kind of build that talent organically within Alberta, so that we can get, more people involved, and we can retain that talent even, so that people don't have to travel to, the hubs in Canada or even to the United States to pursue those kinds of careers, right? We want to see people stay here, and we want to make, we really want to encourage Alberta to be that hub of talents and to be that place that people want to go to when they think of esports, right?
I think that's such a phenomenal point. It's about building an ecosystem. We've talked before about the different players that are well known across the world that all left Alberta to fulfill their passions. And I think really the message that we at AESA are trying to build and really sell and make sure everyone is aware of is making sure that we can build a place that is safe and comfortable and engaging for everyone to be a part of. You think about like the parallels between traditional sports and esports, and while there is some differences, some of the key things we're lacking that should be the same is those support systems where, if you're going to a football game, the audience isn't stocked with football players. It's stocked with families. It's stocked with people that are interested in spectating. It's stocked with people with dreams and ambitions of their own. And you talk about collegiate and high school spaces. Again, there's places for you to engage in a lot of those football, hockey, etc. Spaces, whether it's coaching and mentoring or learning from, or really just practicing at an amateur level. A lot of those things are really lacking. When you get into esports, currently it's either grassroots and you're just with your friends, or at the professional level where it's you've hit the top echelon and you've kind of made the jump, but that gap is a ravine that is hard to cross. And what we're trying to do is really build a bridge over that, create it so that there's some way for people to get involved. And it doesn't have to be as a competitor. You could be, there's careers in lighting technicians, there's careers in broadcast, there's careers in every which path, because it is very similar to a lot of the traditional sports meets. And I think really when we're designing, whether it's our events, our processes, our code of conduct, it's really within mind of everyone who's a part of it. And I think the message we're trying to sell is that we want people to be enjoying esports, regardless of why. It doesn't really matter what perspective you want to take on it. We want to encourage you to get involved. If you have a child that's interested in esports, we really want you to, be there, support them. If you yourselves are interested in esports, come on, we'd love to see you. And if you're worried about, not being the top player, that's part of our job, is to continue building events that are enjoyable for people that aren't going to win. I think about the numbers of if you have a 500-person tournament, and everyone loves to sell this idea of the biggest, grandest tournament with the most competitors, but the more competitors you add, the less people win. And that's something I think about a lot when building these events out, is how do I make it enjoyable for the person who shows up and loses every match they play? Because you just get more and more of that as you grow. And I actually just a week ago responded to a tweet that was talking about the size of events post COVID and struggling to meet attendance numbers like before. And I really emphasize the change of valuing events and weighing in the importance of an event based on the amount of people that attend it, and instead based on maybe currently the safety regulations, but more importantly, how do they engage their audience? How do they engage with the people that are there? If every single person comes out of the event saying, "Oh my God, I loved this event. I really want to go again," you can't really consider it a failure. It could be to 10 people, it could be to 200. It doesn't particularly matter, at least from the value perspective. And I think really building that up and getting involved is the best way. And I hope it's made very clear that the value of every single individual and what they can provide, whether they are competitor, spectator, host, volunteer, every single person means a lot to what we're doing here at AESA. And I'm really hoping that the message can get across. And really, if you want or have any questions or any concerns or anything that doesn't make sense, please reach out to us. It's a very short. I know we're just about done here, but I really would love to talk to anyone more about this topic, and hopefully I'll have more opportunities to do so in the future. Any thoughts, Courtney or Jordan?
No, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. It's just as valuable to us to have a 2-0 player as it is to have an 0-2, and making sure that they're going to have equal amounts of fun. And I'm really glad that us at AESA are really working towards that as our future.
Exactly. Like, esports is for everyone. We want to make sure that every step along the way that we're keeping that in mind. And I do have hope for us and for everything that we're doing in the future. And I hope that you'll see us along the way too.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Courtney and Jordan, for joining me today. I know after this, we're going to go right into rock, paper, scissors, which is a perfect example of something anyone can get involved in. So please stick around. We'll see you very shortly with rock, paper, scissors, and good luck.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
See you.